I was a college student looking for some extra cash when I answered an ad for a babysitter for a wealthy family. I had experience with kids, and I was excited for the opportunity to make some money while doing something I enjoyed. The family lived in an old, sprawling mansion on the outskirts of town. They told me that the house had been in their family for generations, and that it was a bit of a fixer-upper. I didn't think much of it at the time, but as I walked up to the house that first night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The family was friendly and welcoming, and the little girl I would be watching was adorable. They gave me a tour of the house, and it was clear that they had put a lot of work into restoring it. But even as they showed me around, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As the night went on, I settled into my routine. I read stories to the little girl, and we played games together. But as it grew later, and the girl fell asleep, the house began to feel different. The shadows seemed longer, and the creaks and groans of the old house seemed louder. I tried to shake off my nerves, telling myself that it was just an old house and that I was imagining things. But then I saw it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadowy figure standing outside the window. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I told myself that it was just a trick of the light, but as I looked closer, I could see that the figure was real. It was a dark, hooded figure, standing perfectly still and staring straight at me. I quickly turned away, trying to calm myself down. But as I did, I saw the figure move. It stepped closer to the window, and I could see that it was holding something in its hand. I couldn't make out what it was, but it looked like a long, thin object. I knew I needed to get out of there, but I couldn't leave the little girl alone. I quickly gathered my things and woke her up, explaining that we needed to leave. She was confused and scared, but I told her that everything was going to be okay. We left the house as quickly as we could, and I didn't look back until we were safely in the car. But when I did, I saw that the figure was still there, standing at the window and watching us drive away. I never went back to that house, and I never saw the family again. But I couldn't shake the memory of that shadowy figure and the feeling that it was still out there, waiting for me. I tried to put the experience behind me, but it was always there, lurking in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was not just a figment of my imagination, but something real and dangerous. I started to do research on the house and the family, but I couldn't find any information on the history of the house or any reports of strange occurrences. I even went back to the house, but it was abandoned and boarded up. I couldn't understand why the family would just leave their home, especially after putting so much work into restoring it. I asked around the neighborhood, but no one knew what had happened to the family or why they left. I was left with more questions than answers, and it was starting to consume me. The nightmares continued and my anxiety was at an all-time high. I knew I needed to find closure, and the only way to do that was to find out what happened that night. I reached out to a paranormal investigator who specialized in investigating haunted houses, and he agreed to help me. We went to the house together and did a thorough investigation, using all the latest technology to try and find any evidence of paranormal activity. To my surprise, we found something. The investigator picked up on strange energy readings, and we even captured a few EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, of what sounded like a child crying. We also found a hidden room in the basement, which appeared to have been used as some kind of ritual space. I was a Walmart store worker, and I had been working there for several years. I was used to the routine of closing up the store late at night. It was something I had done countless times before, and it never really fazed me. But one night, everything changed. It was a slow night, and I was the only one left in the store. I had finished stocking the shelves and cleaning up, and I was just waiting for the last of the customers to leave so I could lock up. As I walked through the aisles, I suddenly heard a child's laughter. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but the laughter persisted. I followed the sound, and it led me to the toy aisle. I was confused. There were no children in the store, But as I looked around, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. There was a little girl, no more than 5 years old, standing in the middle of the aisle. She was dressed in old-fashioned clothes, and she had a sad look on her face. I approached her, thinking she must be lost. But as I got closer, she vanished into thin air. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. I quickly closed up the store and went home, but the image of that little girl stayed with me. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had seen a ghost. I asked my coworkers if they had ever experienced anything strange in the store, but they all laughed and told me I was imagining things. But I knew what I had seen, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the little girl was trying to tell me something. I started to do research on the store and its history, but I couldn't find any information about a child who had died or had any connection to the store. I even went back to the store at night, hoping to catch a glimpse of the little girl again, but I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. As the days passed, the memory of the little girl began to fade, and I thought I was just imagining things. But then one night, while closing the store, I heard her laughter again. It was louder this time, and it seemed to be coming from all around me. I followed the sound, and it led me to the baby aisle. I was terrified as I saw the ghostly figure of the little girl again, but this time she was not alone. There was a ghostly figure of a man standing beside her. He was tall, and he had a sinister look on his face. He was holding the little girl's hand, and they both were staring at me with a blank expression. I knew I had to get out of there. I dropped everything and ran to the front of the store, where I found the entrance locked. I frantically searched for my keys, but they were missing. I was trapped, with no way to escape. The ghostly figures were getting closer and closer, and I could hear the man's voice whispering in my ear. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but it was clear that he was angry and that he wanted me to stay. I was paralyzed with fear as the ghostly figures reached out to me, and I thought for sure that I was going to die. But just as they were about to touch me, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was one of the security guards. He had come to check on me. I was shaking and I could hardly speak, but I managed to explain to him what had just happened. He didn't believe me at first, but when he saw the look on my face, he knew that I was telling the truth. After that night, I never went back to that Walmart store again. I quit my job, and I never worked in retail again. I still have nightmares about that little girl and the man, and I know that they will haunt me for the rest of my life. I have never been able to explain what happened that night, and I don't think I ever will. My family and I were on vacation in Morocco, staying at a luxurious hotel in the city of Fez. We had been looking forward to this trip for months and were excited to experience the culture and history of this beautiful country. But from the moment we arrived at the hotel, something felt off. The staff seemed nervous and uneasy, and there were strange symbols etched into the walls of the lobby. We brushed it off as just part of the exotic atmosphere and went to our room to settle in. But as the night went on, strange things began to happen. We would hear footsteps outside our door, even though the hallway was empty. And every night, without fail, someone would knock on our door at exactly 3 a.m. We would open the door to find no one there, and the hallway would be completely silent. We tried to ignore it and enjoy our vacation, but the strange occurrences continued to escalate. One night, I woke up to find that all of our suitcases had been moved from the closet to the middle of the room. Another night, my wife woke up to find that all of her jewelry was missing, only to have it reappear in her purse the next day. We couldn't take it anymore, and we decided to leave the hotel and find another place to stay. But as we were packing our bags, we found out that our car wouldn't start, and all the phones were out of service. We were trapped, with no way to leave. That night, the knocking on the door was louder than ever, and we could hear whispering and laughter coming from outside. We were too scared to open the door, and we spent the night huddled together in the room, too terrified to sleep. The next morning, we were finally able to leave the hotel and never looked back. But the memory of that night stayed with us, and we couldn't shake the feeling that something was following us. We never spoke of it again, but the experience left a lasting impact on all of us. To this day, I still have nightmares about that hotel and the mysterious occurrences that happened there. We returned home and tried to put the experience behind us, but it was always there, lurking in the back of our minds. We couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister had followed us home. We started to notice strange occurrences in our own home. Objects would move on their own, and we would hear strange noises in the middle of the night. We tried to ignore it, thinking it was just our imagination, but it was getting harder and harder to ignore. We began to research the hotel in Fez, hoping to find an explanation for what had happened. But we couldn't find any information about the hotel or any reports of strange occurrences. It was then that we realized that the hotel was not just haunted, but it was cursed. The hotel was built on top of an ancient burial ground, and the spirits of the dead were disturbed by the construction. We unknowingly angered the spirits, and they were seeking revenge. We knew we had to do something to break the curse, so we reached out to a local spiritualist who specialized in removing curses. The spiritualist performed a ritual to remove the curse, and since then, we haven't had any strange occurrences in our home. The experience changed us. We became more sensitive to the unseen, and our perspective on life was forever altered. We now have a deeper understanding and respect for the afterlife and the power of the unknown. We will never forget that night and the terror that we felt, but we are grateful for the lessons it taught us. We never went back to Morocco, and we never stayed in a hotel again. We learned to appreciate what we have and to never take anything for granted. We are forever grateful for the spiritualist who helped us break the curse and gave us peace of mind. My brother and I had always been adventurous, and we decided to take a trip to Pakistan to hike the mountains. We were both experienced hikers and were excited to explore the beautiful landscapes of Pakistan. We set off on our hike, and everything was going smoothly. We were taking in the breathtaking views and enjoying each other's company. But as the day went on, things started to feel off. We would catch glimpses of something moving in the corner of our eye, but when we turned to look, there was nothing there. At first, we thought it was just our imagination, but as the day went on, the sightings became more frequent. We would see a figure darting in and out of the bushes, always just out of reach. We both felt a sense of unease, but we shrugged it off and continued our hike. As night fell, we set up camp and built a fire to keep warm. But as we sat around the fire, we both felt a sense of dread. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. We went to sleep, but our sleep was plagued by nightmares. We both dreamt of a figure, a Jinn, appearing and disappearing, scaring us. We woke up feeling exhausted and paranoid. The next day, we continued our hike, but we felt uneasy. We kept seeing the figure, and it seemed to be getting closer and closer. We tried to ignore it and push on, but we ignored the feeling that something was following us. As we reached the summit, we finally got a good look at the figure. It was a Jinn, a spirit of the mountains. It was a terrifying sight, with glowing red eyes and a dark, ominous aura. It stood there, watching us, and we both felt a deep sense of fear. We knew we had to get out of there, but the Jinn had other plans. It began to stalk us, appearing and disappearing at will. We couldn't shake the feeling that it was toying with us, enjoying our fear. We tried to outrun it, but it was always one step ahead. We were lost in the mountains, and the Jinn seemed to be leading us deeper into the wilderness. We were running out of options, and we knew that we had to do something. We remembered the tales of the locals, that jinns could be placated with offerings, so we left some food and drink for it. The Jinn took the offering and disappeared, leaving us alone. We finally made it back to civilization, but the experience had left a deep impression on both of us. We knew for a fact that the Jinn was still out there, watching us, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. We never went back to Pakistan, and we never hiked again. The memory of the Jinn haunted us for years to come, and we knew and a strong feeling that it was still out there, waiting for us. We learned to appreciate the power of the unseen, and we knew that we were lucky to have made it out alive. But our troubles were far from over. The Jinn had attached itself to us, and it seemed determined to torment us for its own twisted amusement. It would appear in our dreams, scaring us and taunting us with its ominous presence. We would wake up in a cold sweat, feeling like it was still in the room with us. It's been 1 year, and we still get nightmares. Thanks for watching. Help support us by subscribing and liking this video. We've got more scary stories to keep you up at night, so stay tuned and hit the bell notification.